Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to do a deep dive into something pretty different, I think. Hopecore. It's this whole trend on TikTok.
Yeah.
Spreading positivity and good vibes and all that.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty interesting seeing this kind of like softer approach gain traction on a platform that's, known for pretty chaotic trends and stuff.
Yeah, like stuff comes and goes so fast there. So it is a bit of a, I don't know, breath of fresh air almost.
Yeah.
So for those who maybe haven't come across Hopecore yet, like what we're talking about is like you're scrolling TikTok and suddenly see all these videos with these, pastels and nature scenes and uplifting messages.
It's almost like a, way to bring mindfulness to the digital experience,
Yeah.
right? Like a visual representation of that. So it's encouraging people to like, just pause for a second, reflect and find a little peace while they're online.
And it seems to be really like resonating, right? I mean, from what we've seen so far, it's not just surface level, it's not just
Right.
aesthetics. It's like it's tapping into something deeper, right?
Yeah.
This need for optimism and connection and all of that in a world that can feel so overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting how this trend aligns with, the whole field of positive psychology, right?
Mm.
Which focuses on strengths and well-being. It's almost like, positive psychology is finding a way to express itself in the digital world through this hope core thing.
Yeah, that is a really interesting connection. So it's not just about like running away from the negative stuff. It's about, trying to cultivate something more positive. So where did this all begin? Did someone just like sit down one day and say, "Hey, let's start Hopecore"?
I don't think so. I mean, from what we've found, it seems like it was way more organic, just sort of evolved like all these conversations that were happening already about mental health and self-care and, people wanting more authentic online spaces.
It's almost like a grassroots movement born from this like collective yearning for something more, in the digital world.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really interesting to see how this movement is like happening specifically on TikTok, right? A platform that's known for trends that are, super fleeting. So the fact that Hope Core is sticking around, it seems to be a sign that there's something deeper going on.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if it's kind of a sign of a bigger, broader change that's happening. But okay, let's get a little more specific. What does Hopecore actually look like when you see it?
Right.
What are some of the elements that define this whole trend?
Okay, that's a good question. One of the main things is the visual storytelling, I think. So you'll see a lot of like calming nature imagery,
Mm-hmm.
soft lighting, minimalist art.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times those visuals are paired with like inspirational quotes or affirmations.
Yeah, totally. I've definitely seen those popping up on my feed. It's like they're little reminders, right? To like find the good stuff, even when you're just scrolling through your phone.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then there's the personal narratives, right? Like people sharing stories about being resilient, overcoming challenges, or even just celebrating the small joys.
Yeah, that's cool. It's like this like vulnerability movement within the whole positivity movement. It's like saying, hey, things aren't always perfect, but we can still, find reasons to hope and connect with each other.
Exactly, yeah. And these stories, these personal stories, they really create this feeling of community, right? Shared experience. And it reminds us that we're not alone in our struggles, but
Yeah.
also not alone in, the good things too.
Yeah. And speaking of community, another big element that I've noticed is that a lot of Hopecore stuff is super collaborative, right? You see these hashtag challenges,
Yeah.
duets, people are taking each other's ideas and, running with them, and that helps spread the message even further.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's a big part of it. It turns Hopecore from just like passively watching into something that you actively participate in. So you're not just, taking in the content, but you're adding to this whole like collective expression of hope and being positive.
So beyond like, what it looks like in the whole community vibe, what's really driving this whole thing? Why is Hopecore hitting people so hard?
Yeah.
Especially with social media being what it is.
Well, think about it. We're constantly bombarded with all this stuff online, news, opinions, information. And a lot of it, honestly, can be super negative or make you anxious.
Oh, totally. Sometimes it feels like there's no escape from it, no matter how much you try to like curate your feed or whatever. So that's where Hopecore comes in, right?
Exactly. It's like a safe space almost, where
Mhm.
people can go to intentionally find content that lifts them up, inspires them, instead of the stuff that drains you.
So it's almost like a form of self-care, but digital, like
Yeah.
a conscious choice to think about your mental well-being while you're online.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. And it fits in with this whole conversation about being mindful and intentional in our digital lives.
Hmm.
Hopecore is kind of like how those values show up on social media.
This is already like way more than just looking at some trendy hashtag, right? It feels like we're talking about a potential shift in how people view and experience the whole digital world. But before we go too far down that road, I think it's time to dig a little deeper into the psychology behind all of this.
Yeah, for sure. Like, why does it resonate so deeply with people on a psychological level?
Mm.
What are the implications for, mental well-being and stuff? That's where things get really interesting. Okay, so we were saying how Hope Core kind of lines up with positive psychology.
Yeah.
I think we can go a bit deeper, look at the actual psychological stuff that's going on.
Yeah, totally. I feel like there's so much more to it than, just nice pictures and quotes and stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure. One of the big things is how what we see affects how we feel.
Yeah.
Like, there's actual research that shows, like, if you look at nature pictures, your stress hormones go down, you feel calmer, more peaceful.
Yeah, that makes total sense. When I think about, typical Hope Corps stuff, it's all like sunny fields and beaches and the ocean. You can't help but feel relaxed.
Exactly. And a lot of the people making this stuff, I think they get that even if it's not like a conscious thing, it's like they're creating a whole visual language of peace and, good vibes.
Hmm. And it's not just about like avoiding negativity, right? It's more about actively like going after stuff that makes you feel good,
Right.
hopeful.
Exactly. There's all these studies that show that when you focus on the good stuff, it kind of like spreads out. You see things differently,
Mhm.
you get more creative, you even bounce back better from tough situations.
So it's like by looking at Hope Core, you're basically training your brain to be more optimistic.
Yeah, kind of. It's like building up your positivity muscles.
I like that. And that connects to the whole social connection thing too, right?
Yeah.
We talked about community earlier.
Yeah, yeah.
But what's the psychology there? Like, how does that fit in?
Okay, well, think about it. Humans are social creatures, right?
Yeah.
We got to connect with other people, feel like we belong. Social media can make you feel lonely sometimes, but Hopecore, I think, it creates a different kind of interaction.
It's like finding your people, even if it's just online.
Right, exactly. People who all want the same thing. More positivity, more hope. And those experiences, even if they're just happening on a screen, they can really affect you. Like, you realize you're not the only one going through stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and that there's power in having hope together.
It makes me think about, when people are going through a rough time, they often go online for support.
Yeah.
Could Hope Core be a healthier way to do that? Like instead of focusing on the bad stuff together, you focus on, being resilient together.
That's a good point. It does make you wonder, though, right? Is there a downside to all this optimism online? Like, if you only focus on the good stuff, does it mean you're ignoring real problems? Or not letting yourself feel, the full range of emotions?
That's a good question. It's like with anything else, you got to have balance.
Right. Hope doesn't mean pretending bad things don't happen, Of course not. but it can give you the strength to deal with them.
Exactly. It's about finding that middle ground,
Mhm.
acknowledging that life's complicated,
Yeah.
but still choosing to, focus on the good stuff, the potential for things to get better.
And maybe Hope Core is showing us how to do that,
Uh-huh.
at least in the online world.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely challenging what we expect from social media, right?
Right.
It's not just passively scrolling anymore.
Right.
It's people getting involved, creating, and sharing these messages of hope.
And that's really interesting, right? That shift from just consuming stuff to actually making stuff.
Totally.
It's like people are realizing they have power. Like they can shape their online experience and maybe even influence the whole digital landscape.
And that brings up a really important question. If Hopecore really is about this change towards like a more conscious way of using social media, what does that mean for the future of, digital culture as a whole?
That's a big one. Are we like on the edge of a Hope Core revolution where positivity and well-being are like the main focus online?
I don't know about a revolution, but I do think it's part of a bigger trend. People want authenticity. They want connection. They want their digital lives to have meaning.
So it's like Hope Core starts this ripple effect,
Mm-hmm.
and then all these other positive trends start popping up, and it changes how we interact online.
That's definitely something to think about.
Mm.
And in the next part, we'll look at some of those potential ripple effects, like what could they mean for the future of digital culture? Stick around.
All right, so we're back. Ready to wrap up this whole Hopecore deep dive. We've talked about like where it came from, what it looks like, the psychology behind it, even the potential downsides of, too much optimism.
Yeah, we also touched on this idea that maybe Hopecore is part of something bigger, right?
Mm.
Like people being more mindful about how they use social media.
Right, exactly. But what does that actually look like? Like, what are some examples? How could Hopecore change digital culture going forward?
Well, one thing we might see is more content that's all about like well-being and mental health.
Hmm.
Imagine meditation apps built right into social media platforms, or like creators teaching mindfulness techniques in their videos.
Oh, that's interesting. It's like self-care and social media are kind of merging together in a good way, though.
Yeah.
People might be looking for digital spaces that, actually make them feel better, not just entertain them for a few seconds.
Right, exactly. And it could go beyond just like personal well-being too.
Yeah.
We might see creators using their platform to talk about things like, social justice or climate change, things they're passionate about.
So it's like a shift from me to we.
Yeah, exactly. All that focus on positivity and resilience and hope core could turn into like a bigger emphasis on, working together for good, making a difference.
It's like Hopecore planted a seed, and now we're starting to see the first little sprouts of like a kinder, more involved online community.
I like that. And it's important to remember, this isn't just on TikTok. We're seeing similar things across all kinds of platforms. Yeah. People want authenticity. They want connection. They want their digital lives to have meaning.
It makes you wonder, though, right? Could this change how we act offline, too? Like, could Hopecore actually inspire us to be more hopeful, more intentional in our everyday lives?
That's a really interesting question. It's definitely possible. Like, if people are paying more attention to what they're doing online, maybe they'll start paying more attention to their real-world actions, too.
It's like Hopecore is training us to be more hopeful and engaged in general, but in the end, it comes down to each person.
Right.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. Trends come and go, but we each get to decide how we use the digital world, what kind of impact we want to have.
And that brings us back to you listening right now. We've explored all this stuff about Hopecore, where it came from, what it looks like, the psychology, even what it could mean for the future.
Right?
But what does it all mean for you? Maybe this deep dive has given you some new ideas.
Yeah, maybe.
Or inspired you to, be more mindful of what you're doing online. Maybe you'll start looking for more Hopecore content or even make some yourself. Or maybe you'll just, approach the whole online world with a little more hope and intention.
Whatever you do, just remember, even in this crazy world of social media, you have the power to choose what you see, how you interact. You can be part of creating something more positive and meaningful.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we'll leave you with this thought. What does hope look like in your digital life? And how can you bring more of it in, both for yourself and everyone else?
Until next time, keep exploring, keep engaging, and stay hopeful.
This is the Deep Dive signing off.